So chances are, if you clicked on this video, you might be feeling like you're falling behind in life, right? You might see other people that you work with or friends or maybe even family members who just seem like they got it all figured out and then they're doing so much better than you are. And maybe they are, right? Maybe they have a house and a family and a great job and all this other stuff going on and you feel like you don't have any of that, or maybe you have some of it, or maybe it's something entirely different, right? Maybe a friend of yours is traveling, all around the world and enjoying themselves, and you just feel like you're working a 9 to 5 and you're miserable. And maybe that is the case. Maybe there's some truth to that. I'm not going to go ahead and deny that, but I think the reason I want to make this video is it comes down to perspective, and the way you look at things, right? I think comparing yourself to others is a dangerous game, and it can really negatively impact your morale and your mindset. And here's why, right? Other people started at other places, right? Think of a marathon. What is it, like 26 miles or something like that? So if I start at mile 0 and someone else starts at mile 13 and someone else starts at mile 20, they're in a lot better position starting off than I am. So let's say they started off at mile 13 and mile 20, and in an hour they're at mile, I don't know, they're like a mile or two ahead of themselves. But me starting at mile 0, in an hour I'm already at mile 5. So while I'm still way behind them in the big picture, right? I'm only on mile 5 of 26 or whatever it is. And that second person is now at mile maybe 15, and the other person is now at mile 21 or 22. While they're still way ahead of me, I've made much more progress than they have, right? I went from mile 0 to mile 5, while they only went up 1 to 2 miles within that hour. And this is just an example to show you that it's all about perspective and understanding where you started. And if I were to just strictly compare myself to them and say, wow, I'm only on mile 5, that dude's on mile 15, and that dude's on mile 22, then it sounds like I'm way behind. But the progress that I've made in the same amount of time as them is drastically larger than the progress that they've made. So what's the point here? What am I trying to say? Comparing yourself to others is borderline irrelevant because we all start at different places, right? Someone who is living in poverty and finds themselves in a home with a family and they don't really have to worry about money, that's an incredible improvement in life, right? Someone who's borderline homeless now has a home and a family and they don't really have to worry about money, versus someone else who maybe was born with an inheritance of $10 million and maybe they spent half of it and now they have $5 million. So yeah, they probably have more money than that first person, but the improvement and the progress that first person has made versus the second person, it's monumental. The first person came from poverty and now has a home and a family and doesn't have to worry about money, as far as like how they're going to eat, versus someone who started off with $10 million and now has $5 million. They've lost 50% of their net worth. So it's all about perspective and understanding where someone has started and where they're at now versus just where they're at now. So I say all that to say, comparing yourself to others is irrelevant. What you need to do is compare yourself to yourself, right? Whether that was a year ago or 5 years ago, or maybe even a week ago. All you really need to do is focus on improving every single day, week, month, and year. And I think you'll see a lot more progress in yourself, and you'll realize how much better you're doing when you compare yourself to an older version of yourself rather than to your friends or your coworkers, or even worse, and possibly the worst, random people you see on social media. There's two things wrong with that. Number one, again, you don't know where they started. Number two, whatever you see on social media is a literal fraction of what that person's life really looks like. They could be faking it. They could be taking fake pictures. They could be putting everything they have on debt. You don't know the truth behind all that. So please do not worry yourself with what people are doing on social media. That's the last place you want to go to compare yourself. Trust me. So we discussed a lot here. And I think, the next thing and probably the most important thing is, how do you actually track your progress constructively, right? Because you can say, I want to be better than I was a year ago, but do you just remember off the top of your head where you were a year ago? You might, if you've had some really drastic changes. Maybe, as I mentioned earlier in that example, maybe you were borderline homeless and now you have an apartment and a job with consistent income. So yeah, that would be some solid progress, and you can track that progress in that sense. But those types of drastic changes aren't going to happen for everyone. So for your average person who, you have a place to live and you have a job and, maybe you have some money saved, or maybe you have some debt, or maybe you're somewhere in between there, right? Just your average person. How do you actually track your progress? Well, I think there's three categories. Number one, for tracking progress, I think there's financial progress, I think there's personal progress, and then I think there's health progress. So those are the three things I want to discuss: is financial, personal, and then health. So let's discuss financial real quick. I mean, it's as simple as tracking your net worth, right? Write down everything you absolutely own, right? Any money you have, any investments you have, anything you own that is worth money. Then write down your debt, anything you owe to people, so credit cards, personal loans, student loans, car loans, and then just subtract your debt from your assets, and that's your net worth. Track it on a quarterly basis every 3 months. That's what I do. I've been doing it since 2020. It's really interesting to go back and see what progress you've made. I really can't stress enough. If there's anything that you'll take from this video, start tracking your net worth, because it really is interesting to go back and look at it. I'll be totally transparent with you. Back in 2020, I had a negative net worth, which means I owed more money than I had. And now I have a six-figure net worth. And that there was a lot of hard work that went into it. It took about 5 years or so, if I remember correctly. I have all the data. I've tracked it all on an Excel sheet, but it took me years to get to that point. But looking back and seeing the actual data that shows I was literally in the negative almost 5 or 6 years ago, and now I have a positive net worth of over six figures, it feels incredible. It's empowering and it keeps me motivated. So definitely start tracking your net worth. Number two, when it comes to personal progress, start writing down some goals at the beginning of the year. Like, just write down a few things you want to do. Maybe you want to read more books. Maybe you want to go to the gym at least 3 times a week for the whole year. I don't know. Maybe you want to pick up a new hobby or learn how to do something. Maybe, whatever the case may be. Make more friends, join a club, anything. Just write down your goals. And then at the end of the year, set a reminder for yourself to look at those goals and see which ones you actually completed. I'm a big fan of writing things down. I think it holds you responsible and it makes you want to actually achieve them versus just saying you want to do something and then forgetting about it within a week. Writing things down is a really good way to actually track your progress, and then reflecting on it at the end of the year. And then finally, it comes to your health. I mentioned this briefly just before, but getting into the gym, exercising, finding ways to spend time moving your body and doing things is great, but actually tracking it. Two things you can do. Number one, track your weight. I track my weight on a monthly basis just to see where I'm at overall. I have sort of a range that I fluctuate in for my weight, so I know if I'm consistently under that, I need to start eating more and exercising more and whatnot. But also taking pictures of yourself. If you want to do it on a monthly or a quarterly basis, just take pictures of your body so you have something to actually look at and see how your body's changed. Because every day you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not going to notice those little differences. But over 3 to 6 months or even a year, your body's probably going to look different. So if you have photos to look at, it helps you track how much weight you've gained or how much weight you've lost, how much muscle you've gained or how much muscle you've lost, so on and so forth. So that's it, man. That's all I got for you guys today. I really wanted to make this video because I know how easy it is to feel like you're falling behind in life, especially if you're comparing yourself to others. Don't do that, man. Just compare yourself to yourself and try and improve every single day. A little bit of improvement every day is going to add up to a lot over the course of a year. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate you checking in. As always, if you're new here, I post every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and then on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern time. post all kinds of content, mainly personal finance, but also just life experiences and things that I feel like people can relate to. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.